I'm a man who has two different opinions. One, the MCU is the best thing ever. And two, the MCU kinda has a few issues, and they're kinda bad. I want to address some here today though. I mean, it's not like one of the big wigs of Marvel are ever gonna see this, but hopefully people will at least, see this video and start talking about them. One issue I have that is kind of understandable, but still bugs me, is when a hero doesn't make an appearance in a show or movie when they can actually help out in the situation. Like Spider-Man lives in New York, right? And when, Falcon and Bucky, or well, Captain America now, were dealing with terrorists attacking the GRC, he just doesn't show up. Or when Hawkeye and Kate Bishop are dealing with Kingpin in the tracksuits, Kingpin being Spider-Man's biggest enemy in the comics, he just doesn't show up, even though his apartment is like a couple blocks away. I just don't think that makes sense. But at the same time, I understand, because technically Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man in movies and shows. So I know why he doesn't show up in real life, but in the context of the MCU, it just doesn't make sense why he wouldn't at least show up to see what's going on. I just think the MCU would benefit a lot more if heroes made appearances in other shows or movies. I mean, it really doesn't apply to places like Wakanda, or like only Black Panther can really deal with a situation there, since he's the only hero. Or in a place like New York, which is filled with heroes, it just doesn't make sense that only one person shows up to deal with a situation. Especially when the MCU is getting filled with more and more heroes, it's going to become harder to explain why someone would just sit out on the sidelines and watch, instead of showing up to help out. I mean, a lot of people would argue that it will take away from the hero show or movie, but I mean, most people watching the MCU will at least know who's who within the universe. So if they make an appearance in another show, not many people will question it. Honestly, I think it will just add to the universe in a way. Even though it's not the hero's movie, they're still living within the universe doing things. I think it'll just bring more immersion to the whole thing, rather than detract from the original hero's story. I mean, think about that small moment in Ant-Man where Falcon makes an appearance, because Ant-Man's trying to break into the Avengers campus. It's a fun moment, and it actually sets up a reason why Ant-Man got involved in Civil War. I don't think this needs to be a thing in every single MCU project though, just the ones where it makes sense. There's a very fine line that needs to be balanced, and I think No Way Home really dealt with the situation well, by having Matt Murdock show up for one quick scene, where he was the perfect guy to get Peter out of his legal troubles. And in saying that, I think future movies and shows will start doing this a lot more, since there's a lot of rumours going around that Daredevil is now going to be in multiple different MCU projects, which is really exciting, and I hope they're true. Speaking of future MCU projects, it looks like we're going to be getting a cool mashup of As Guardians of the Galaxy with Thor Love and Thunder, which I'm really excited to see. And I'm hoping they implement Thor in some way into like the Guardians Christmas special, because it would be really nice to see more of the dynamic they had in Infinity War and Endgame. And honestly, I don't think any MCU fan would be opposed to seeing more interactions between those characters, because a lot of people enjoyed those interactions, and they're some of the most memorable parts of Infinity War and Endgame. Another thing that I feel like is sorely missing from these movies is the heroes saving individuals. Something that I can understand is hard to fit into a 2 to 3 hour movie, but it's something that was done in both Age of Ultron and the first Avengers movie. These moments are small and quick, but I still appreciate them. And again, I think it really adds to the suspense and the stakes of the situation, and helps us as an audience who don't have superpowers understand how bad the situation is for the heroes as well as the world. Now, I'm not saying the modern MCU doesn't do this. The Falcon and Winter Soldier final episode had multiple moments in the episode where Bucky or Sam had to go out of their way to save people. One moment that really stands out to me is when Falcon's chasing down one of the Flag Smashers in a helicopter full of hostages, and I believe a door was ripped off that falls towards a civilian on a bridge, and Falcon, who's now Captain America, has to go make sure that bystanders don't get hit, so he uses his shield and wings to protect this dude, and it's a really great moment. Though small, it adds to the scene by showing us Sam deserves to hold the mantle of Captain America, because he's willing to go out of his way to save individuals, because he is a good man. Even if we don't get these moments in the movies anymore, I hope they would at least put them in the shows, Maybe scenes similar to Spider-Man Homecoming, where Spider-Man is just doing his thing around the neighbourhood. I think it would be a lot of fun to seeing the heroes doing a similar kind of thing, and I think it has a lot of comedic potential. Since it's a show, they would also have time to do this sort of thing. One thing that bothers me about the MCU is the way women are written and portrayed compared to the men. With a couple of exceptions, most of the women's stories are written poorly, and the main problem that they really need to overcome is themselves, which is the most basic trope, and in most cases the foe that they're up against has also been nerfed and isn't nearly as threatening as the foes written for the male counterparts. Now, being a hero isn't always about personal conflict, and I believe that Captain Marvel's a perfect example of this, because all they do is hype her up. Like, oh, you're already perfect! And I believe that's the reason why that movie had such a lukewarm reception, because we didn't really see her have any issues when she saved the day. Once she realised that she had the power to do so, there was no sacrifice involved, and there was no point to the movie. Like, we didn't think that she was going to lose at any point, and it just made up for a boring climax. But how about we focus on one of the newbies, rather than dig up old arguments from like 3 years ago. Miss Marvel, at the time of writing, hasn't hit the small screen yet, but from the trailer, I think she's falling into the same writing issues. I mentioned before her reason for being a hero isn't for the good of others, to help people, or even because she wants to stop the bad guys. The trailer conveys, to me at least, that she's only in it to be popular, powerful, and she wants to get the guy that she has a crush on. And to me, that's more selfish than heroic. I could be very wrong and Marvel has just made a really bad trailer, but comparing it to the great trailer we got for Moon Knight, I don't see why they couldn't have done the same for Miss Marvel. Cammy disagrees with me, and I believe a lot of people might disagree with me on this point, but you're allowed to, and I would love to hear people's thoughts in the comments because, you know, I really want to be wrong about this situation. It saddens me because I genuinely think we have good female roles in the MCU. Think Gamora, Nebula, or Black Widow. They're badass, well-rounded characters under good writing, that is. And I'm not saying that I'm a good enough writer to explain why these characters work better than the other female superhero lineup that we currently have, but they just do. And honestly, Wanda would have been on this list previously, but with the mistakes that they made in WandaVision and her turn to villainy, it's just kind of soured the character a bit for me. And if you want to know more about this, keep an eye out for a video essay I'm doing exclusively on her character. I mean, other than those three things, I don't really have any other issues with the MCU, other than maybe the political stuff that they pushed during the marketing. But I feel like with Bob Chapek being the head of Disney, he's going to be making a lot of changes to the franchises around him. He stated that he's very private about his politics, as it's not really good for business and running a company. And honestly, he just wants to make more marketable, crowd-pleasing movies. Though if he starts cutting budgets to the movies like he has been cutting budgets to the theme parks, I really don't think it's going to go well with the future of the MCU. I mean, another issue I was thinking about bringing up was how the movies are starting to feel generic and, you know, all samey. But with movies like Eternals and the experimental ways they've started to implement different things, I feel like those problems are really starting to go away too. At the end of the day, I can't really change these things, you know. And honestly, they're minor issues in the grand scheme of the MCU. But I do hope that they end up getting fixed over time, as I do really enjoy these movies, and I would love to see them improve rather than experiencing a sort of serious rot that we do see in quite a few shows nowadays. Anyway, if you disagree with me on, like, you know, my last point, you know, let me know down in the comments and stuff. I would actually love to have a discussion about the MCU and stuff about the future. Maybe you have your own problems with the MCU that you would like to share. Share them down below. Maybe I missed something. This has been SleekGeekz, you know, we've been vibing, we do other things. Hope you guys will continue watching and keep an eye out for other video essays I will do in the future. Anyway, leave a like, stuff like that. See you all next time. Bye.